Iran. Retired Naval Intelligence Commander Dr. Paul Chabot. He also served as White House senior advisor to President Clinton and George W. Bush. And we thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, look, my pleasure. Last 30 hours, we've seen some significant events in the Middle East. Trump did say that Iran fired about 4 drones, attack drones at ships. It was a Singapore ship, not a U.S. ship, coast of Omani, so just on the northern area there, north of Omani in the Strait of Hormuz. It really feels like Iran is testing the ceasefire at this point. About 30 hours lapsed, and then the U.S. did respond pretty significantly at about 4:30 p.m. Eastern time today. They struck along the coastal area of Iran, including an island area, largely only striking missile storage, drone storage, and coastal radar, likely aligning those locations to where those potential drones came from. And look, the U.S. is not signaling this is an end to the ceasefire or an end to the MOU. Central Command has posted on their official page that this was more framed as an unwarranted attack from Iran and that our response are strictly deterrence at this point.
Listen, everyone who is watching, obviously, regardless of what side of the political coin they're on, they want to make sure there's peace and there's a ceasefire here. But clearly right now that's being tested. At what point do people decide that this is a violation of a ceasefire when the very Strait of Hormuz, the place where, of course, all of this was supposed to be protected, you had a blast there? How is that not a violation?
Well, it really is a violation. It's just to what extent the U.S. and our allies in the region will tolerate Iran to continue to push the envelope. In many ways, we've been in this with Iran for a number of months, the MOU just for about a week maybe. But when we think about the totality of why the Navy exists and what it does, it really is to operate and ensure free waterways. But Iran has had conflicting messages since the MOU was released. They clearly do want to have control of the Strait of Hormuz. They want to conduct tolls, but that's a violation of international law, so that's a no-go. But today, CENTCOM, Central Command, again posted that they are going to provide for safe passage of commercial vessels transiting the strait. And then shortly before the strikes, CENTCOM posted a single picture on their X page, which was of a loaded-to-bear F-16. How will Iran respond? That's next for us to watch in this phase. Potential ballistic missile attacks or mining could be potential in the strait. But I really feel at this point, Iran is just probing for weaknesses and watching for a response. The United States had to respond, but for Americans watching this at home, I really don't feel there's that big of a surprise watching Iran really violate a ceasefire.
How important is it to hit those drone storage locations to kind of show that there is some real force behind that? Why is that so significant?
Well, I might push back a little bit in thinking that in many ways it may not seem as significant, only in the frame of what the United States has stated we would do previously about blowing up bridges and large infrastructure. Right now, it's basically a tit for tat. It's not overwhelming force. We're simply targeting regions along the shore, very minimal, looking at radar potentially and missile sites. So yes, it is a hit back. It is maybe considered a proportional response. But from a U.S. military perspective, you always want to fight your adversary and let them know you mean business and push back hard. But here's what's really important about this. The United States really wants a ceasefire. They want an MOU. They want to see the prices of oil drop. And a lot of this is lined up with the elections coming up in November. That all plays into this, not only politically, but militarily, as our commander-in-chief does literally call the shots at the end of the day.
And how important is the PR campaign, so to speak, after you have something like this happen, the messaging? You heard Vice President J.D. Vance basically say, look, this is a ceasefire, but violence will be met with violence.
Yeah, we have to say that because if we did not respond today, this would pretty much be the end of any U.S. influence in the Middle East. We had Iran largely on their heels months ago. Today, I think they are seen as a stronger nation based on their footing, challenging the United States, getting some pretty good bullet items in the MOU to go forward at the 60-day mark and beyond. So yes, when you look at the comments coming out of the White House, we've got to make sure that we are presenting ourselves the best we can. However, at the same time, I really do feel like Americans are getting wary and tired and unsure of the American strategy to bring peace and stability to this region in the short term, and I do not see that happening in time for the midterms.
Upset that you also heard from Senator Cassidy yesterday from Louisiana, just talking about a closed-door meeting where he lost his cool and essentially said everything that you promised President Trump that would be accomplished with this conflict has not been accomplished. One of the things that he was talking about was that stockpile of nuclear weapons. We understand the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, but what we don't understand is how they're trying to make sure that those weapons don't proliferate. How can people make sure that that's actually happening?
Yeah, well, as of right now, like Senator Cassidy really has nothing to lose. He was defeated in a Republican primary by a Trump-backed candidate. So that senator is a little bit more outright and brave in his comments and pushing forward. But he's not the only one. You see a number of legislators on the Republican side beginning to speak up. The concern obviously is two-front, a nuclear Iran going forward, but also the ballistic missile capability of Iran. We know right now that they have the capability with their ballistic missiles to hit most of Europe and obviously all of our bases in the Middle East. Wall Street Journal today put out a report stating how significant the damage was to our base in Bahrain. Significant ramifications going forward for controlling further violence from Iran, nuclear as well.
Dr. Paul Chabot, always great to have you on our show. Thanks so much for joining us and for your perspective here tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.